Let me start by thanking two people who have been extremely helpful here in pulling this together. Chris Anderson, the curator of TED. Where's Chris? Right here. Thank you. And Mike Casey, CEO of TigerCom. Where's Mike? Both of them, thank you very much for all your help in pulling this together. And then let me introduce somebody who really needs no introduction, the winner of the 1997 Nobel Prize in Physics, the author of hundreds of peer-reviewed scientific articles, including, several dozen since you've been in office, I think, Secretary Chu. My boss, one of my heroes, the US Secretary of Energy, Steven Chu. Thanks.
Thank you. So originally I was scripted to give a talk behind a podium, a few minutes of welcome, and then off we go into these TED Talks. And I said, well, I've never given a TED Talk, and in honor of the creator of TED, Chris Anderson, who's here. And I said, well, maybe I should try to give a TED Talk. So here's my first TED Talk, or at least a pale imitation of a TED Talk. Let's see if I can get this to go. This is an introduction to the Energy All-Stars, and I want to set the stage for what are the challenges and opportunities. And so to that, I would begin. And it begins with the Industrial Revolution. And many historians say the beginning of the Industrial Revolution was essentially when James Watt reinvented the steam engine. He did not invent the steam engine. He invented a steam engine that would work, that was practical. And it was that steam engine of Watt that actually led to the transition from animal or human power, or windmills, to something that would burn fossil fuel, and it's the transition from horses to iron horses and horsepower. Just as an aside, we're in tough economic times. We're saying, what are we as a nation going to invest in the future? And I just wanted to remind people that perhaps the toughest time in the history of the United States was during the Civil War, and during the things were remarkable. He started the land-grant university system, the so-called Morrill Act, which actually became the basis of many institutions you've heard of, Iowa State, this and that state, Michigan State. Also, land-grant universities included MIT and Berkeley as well, and Cornell. And so this creation of universities in the Civil War was one of the great things. Lincoln also signed the Railway Act. He loved railroads, and with this Railroad Act, we began to build a transcontinental railroad system. And in 1862, the act was signed, set in preparation. Completion by 1870, the first transcontinental railroad. And what used to take 6 months now took 2 weeks. One of my very, very favorite paintings and painters, Turner. This is very symbolic. This is a steam-powered tug towing a venerable sailing warship to be chopped up into bits and pieces as scrap. But this, again, is that's sort of a dawn of a new age where steam-powered boats were overtaking sailboats. Another very rapid transition. In the late 1890s, horse-drawn carriages and horses. Detroit, 1920, it's just perhaps 25 years, a transition to automobiles, a few streetcars left, and then soon after that, the streetcars were gone. In this transition, I should also say that it was a transition that wasn't immediately a better technology, but it was aided by the fact that there was a serious environmental pollution problem in cities. And what was that pollution problem? Well, in New York City, there are 160,000 horses, and they were producing 3 to 4 million pounds of horse manure a day. It was piling up in all the vacant lots. Let us just say that the fertilizer manure supply chain was saturated, and they didn't have anything to do with this stuff, and also 40,000 gallons of horse urine a day. So the transition, especially in cities, to this new form of technology was hastened by this environmental challenge. Here's another environmental challenge. This is the temperature of the average temperature of the Earth, starting from 1800, going all the way to 2010. And it's noisy data, it's wiggly data. This actually represents the data of 4 different groups. The last group, in gray, was done by a group which set out to show that all the other groups got it wrong, there were systematic effects, and the Earth wasn't heating up that much. And after studying this for 2 years, looking at completely independent data sets, they concluded, much to their chagrin, but they were hardcore good scientists, and said, nope, they got it right. The Earth was warming up. So let's focus on the most important time it was warming up in the last 30, 35 years. That's where it really begins to take off. What happened during those 35 years, or 30 years? Well, from 1970 to 2010, the ocean levels were rising. What's remarkable about this data is that dotted line was a prediction made in 1990 about how high the ocean levels would rise. And then the lower and upper dotted lines, let's see if this pointer, no, the pointer doesn't work, but the 2 dashed lines, or kind of, we the climate people think that the ocean rise will come bracketed between those 2 boundaries. But the average consensus was that it would follow the dotted line. It didn't. It followed the upper dotted line, which is going beyond, it was rising much faster than climate scientists thought, beyond what they thought would be a 5% probability. It's unlikely, less than 5% chance it could rise that quickly. So we don't really understand that well, and this is an example of this. It's changing faster than we thought. All right. Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Irene, terrible storms, not only in the United States, but terrible storms all over the world. A lot of people get excited about that. Other people say, well, wait, you can't really tell one year about what's happening. I agree. But let's look over a 30-year period at what's happening. Now, over a 30-year period, this is data taken from a reinsurance company called Munich Re, and it looks at insurance losses due to geophysical events. They're essentially earthquakes. And that's the red stuff at the bottom, and you see it's pretty noisy data. There are earthquakes. These are the number of earthquakes. So there's no trend here. They come, they go, you know, they act like earthquakes. But if you look at storms, if you look at hydrological events, floods, if you look at extreme temperatures, droughts, forest fires, something else is happening. You add all those things up, and it's increasing. Don't get excited about 1 year. You should begin to get concerned about a 30-year trend. And this is happening. What about the financial losses? Well, the trend line over 30 years is where we've just crossed 150 billion, going to 200 billion. This doesn't include Hurricane Sandy and the most recent ones. So this is billions of dollars per year being lost due to extreme events. So it's real money. There's real suffering as well. Heat wave, 2003. Many of you might not have known or have forgotten, but I will remind you. In 2003, there was a European heat wave. 52,000 people died. 52,000, not 5,200, not 520. 52,000 died. Moscow, another heat wave, 2010. It went 12 degrees centigrade above the average. That's about 27 degrees or something like that in Fahrenheit. So if the average temperature in Moscow, let's say it was in the summertime, I don't really know, but I'll make up a number, 75 degrees, 85, 95, 100 degrees where the place doesn't have air conditioning. And so 10 to 15,000 deaths in Moscow. And there were forest fires that were going in the southern Moscow for a month. Couldn't put them out. We had a Chicago heat wave. There were roughly 740 reported deaths, but they didn't count 250 bodies that were in autopsies that were found dead in unair-conditioned housing. So it's likely that another 250 died. So this is some of the costs of these extreme weather events. Flood insurance and flood losses. Now, if you live near the coasts or where rivers are flooded, and you want and can afford flood insurance, these are the flood insurance premiums in the blue line. And then And it looks pretty good, except for this one anomalous year, 2005. The premiums are actually kind of ahead of the losses. This is what the insurance companies pay out. But then Katrina happened. And not shown is what happened with Hurricane Sandy. And just that single event, Katrina, put the flood insurance underwater. The cumulative debt now is about $50 billion, not including Hurricane Sandy. So it probably will go to add another $30 to $50 billion of premiums underwater. Who pays for this? Taxpayers. It's all backed up by the federal government. The insurance companies don't take a loss in this. Okay? All right, so I want to remind you of an old Hungarian saying of what crisis is. It's two words, they're Wei Ji. And one character means danger, and the other character means opportunity. And so in this situation, this crisis or opportunity, there is a seed of what we can do. So I don't want to leave you with discouraged and depressed. I want to leave you with the feeling that, yes, we can do a lot of things, and it has to do with improved technologies. For example, the cost of wind is plummeting. It will continue to plunge for another 10 years at least. Within 10 years, many people, CEO of GE, others, think that the cost of wind will be the same as the cost of new gas-generated electricity. New gas turbine versus a new wind turbine, roughly the same price. Because the equipment's getting better, more reliable, more efficient, and they're going to higher and higher towers. How high are these? How large are these? Well, the Airbus wingspan is about 80 meters. The Airbus 380 is the biggest plane, commercial plane we have. The first flight, Wright Brothers flight, was 37 meters. So a small fraction of the wingspan of an Airbus. And each of these blades on this offshore wind turbine is twice as long as the wingspan of an Airbus 380. They're getting big, okay? But as they get big, it's harder and harder to install and certainly harder to maintain. So let me show you this picture again. This is 115 meters high, wind turbines getting very large. Let's talk about something else that's very tall. Skyscrapers, 100 stories. You know, you build a skyscraper with a crane, you bet. But not like the crane shown on the right in the tossing sea. So even a gentle sea would mean that crane, 150 meters, is shaking around. What do? You put the crane on the building, or you use the building to be the brace for the crane, little structure of the crane. And so, free of charge, completely free of charge, and I wrote this in a little paper in Nature. Why can't you hoist the crane up on the big structural thing that's holding the wind turbine, which is designed to withstand huge winds? And so the crane itself can inchworm on the tower, so you don't need a big crane. This is especially important for offshore wind, because now the crane's attached to the tower, you're okay again. Now you can surface it, you can pull up and down big things, you can change out gearboxes, nauticals, everything out of it. Free of charge. Just remember my name. Other things going on. Price of solar plunging. It went in 2004 went from $8 to roughly $4. We have a goal in the Department of Energy. It's going to go to $1. The module, which used to be the dominant cost of solar, is now the international price for a full solar module is about $1 a watt. A watt is a standard amount of sunshine energy per unit area, and then you stick that your solar module under that, and it costs $1 a watt. So things are going down. We want this to be $1 watt fully installed. It is not $1 watt fully installed. It's about $2.50 in a large utility and much more. So what are we going to be doing? Oh, this is just the module prices. It's actually now a little bit less. It's 86 cents per watt, just the module price. Technology still rapidly improving. I think the United States truly is a leader in the innovative technology, but we not only have to be the leader in the invention of these technologies, we have to be the leader in the manufacturing of these technologies. But here's one of the problems. If you're a homeowner in Germany, you can install full price installation, the electrical circuit, everything, the modules. It costs you $2.50 a watt. In the United States, it costs $6, maybe $5.50 a watt. So why is that? Well, you think German labor must be much cheaper. No. German bureaucracy is actually much less. You don't have to stand in line for a permit to get your house inspected. You don't have to stand in line after it's installed to get your house re-inspected. You don't have to go through extensive licensing procedures. Just as when you install a hot water heater or a tankless water heater, you don't have to stand in line to get licensing and all this other stuff, and you have to have middlemen to do this. You hire a plumber, and it works. So why can't we go to a system where you have light enough solar panels where you don't need to do this? It's between your installer and you know, you go to Costco, you buy the stuff, hire a plumber, install it. All right, so these are what we call soft costs in the installation. And let's see what we have. Okay, this is Min Lee, who's the head of the Sunshot program, the solar program in energy efficiency, renewable energy. And he says, unlike physics, we can fundamentally figure out the upper limit for efficiency of solar cells. There is no such limit to bureaucracy. As a member of the Department of Energy, I can say that is true. One final thing, and I'm going to end. These are oil prices from 1996 to 2011. There was a huge spike run up at the end of the Bush administration. Then there was a huge price downward because we went to a worldwide recession, and it started to kick and crawl its way back up. The current price today is about $100, $110 a barrel. Now, contrary to rumor, the Secretary of Energy does not sit in his desk each morning and adjust the dials to adjust the price of oil. I don't, but when the price goes up, I'm accused of adjusting to make them go up. When the price goes down, I'm not thanked, but never mind. So the question is, what is going to be the future price? Well, we don't know, and the EIA has huge uncertainties. It could be $80 a barrel, it could be, in today's dollars, or it could be $250 a barrel. Don't know, all right? However, when the price goes up, what do? We hit the panic button. And when the price goes down, what do? We snooze. All right, not a good plan. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to encourage the technology that will adapt so you get less dependent on oil. One such way is to go to electrification or partial electrification, either electric vehicles or plug-in hybrids. And so this is something very good. The dominant issue in plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles, all electric vehicles, is the cost of the battery. Started at $1,000 per kilowatt hour, now it's $600 a kilowatt hour in 4 years. Terrific. Still too expensive. They're going to get lower. Our DOE target by 2015 is a little over $200, and by 2022, $150 per kilowatt hour. Now, if you get to 200, you are in a very good situation. And I've got 2 minutes, and I'm nearly done. What will happen 10 years from today? I can anticipate going into a Costco and buying a battery at, if it's $200 per kilowatt hour, $1,000 buys me 5 kilowatt hours. Okay, for 5,000 to 10,000, depending on where I will live, dollars, I can buy some solar. And a little calculation tells me with that battery storage and that, and I just said, you know, where would I be living? Well, I don't really know where I'll be living 10 years from today, but just pretend it's the Bay Area. and so you look up the solar installation in the Bay Area, and I saw a payback period of a few years, 4 or 5 years, and I'm 80% off the grid. And I'm blackout immune because I'm generating my own electricity. And I can even, and with 5 kilowatts of solar capacity, I can still charge my plug-in hybrid. Okay? That's really good news, but it's also Not so good news. What's not to like? The upper third or half of American society will do this. They will get 80, 90% off the grid. Many buildings will do this. But the poorer parts of our population will not do this. They won't have that $10,000. They won't be thinking about this. Well, what will happen in order was we want universal electrical hookup. And everybody will want the ability to hook up just in case your local system fails. But that means for the rest of the people, the price goes way up. All right, a problem. 0 minutes. Let me tell you in the -5 seconds. It's an opportunity as well. The utility and distribution companies, or there could be even third parties, will say, we will rent you all this stuff. But the rent is really through a purchase agreement of buying electricity, and it will be cheaper than what you used to pay, and you will be more immune, and you don't have to think about buying it or maintaining it or anything. You just sign it, says we'll go up on the roof, and if the roof falls down, we'll take care of that, but it's not going to fall down, all these things. So there's another opportunity for a business that will allow all Americans and all people around the world to do this. So that's a possibility. Now, so I'm giving you a glimpse of lots of business opportunities, a bright future. And I just want to end with this last slide where Wayne Gretzky, the great hockey player, was asked, you know, you're a little skinny guy, how come you're such a great hockey player? And he says, I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it's been. And so should we. Thank you.